So welcome everybody, and I'm so glad you all came. I'm really excited to see so many people signed on. I'm Tyrer. I'm the guidance counselor at Cotting School, if you don't already know me. And I talk about transition and people's visions all of the time, and it's exciting to see you all here that you want to talk about that too. So today we're going to be using vision planning with Charting the LifeCourse. So you can push the slide forward, Lola. And this is the first of 4 transitional family learning opportunities that we're going to offer this year to the whole population of Cotting School. And you can feel free to ask questions for today in the chat, and to keep yourself muted in the meantime, because we have quite a bit of presentation going on. Lola Piscopo will be doing some sharing of information, and Dr. Pam Varrin will be doing some sharing of our information as well. And we have a couple of parents who are coming that Pam will introduce later, who will be sharing some of their experiences with using this platform. And so you can also afterwards email anyone, any one of us with questions if you think of something later. We'll make sure you get your information back if we don't cover it in this slides. And if you're ever confused, just email any of us. It's totally fine. And so what is the Charting the LifeCourse framework? That's probably what you're all wondering. Some of you may have heard of it before. It's become pretty well known in the community of special education, and it was created by families to help individuals of all ages to develop a vision for a good life. And you know what that means is to discover what it takes to live the life that they want. So a little bit, really a lot of the focus is what do they want, and this is sort of a framework to ask that question and help develop it with them, but also then to figure out, well, what do they need to know to make those things happen? What do they need to do? And identify how to find the supports that are possible and how to develop those supports, because nobody expects that you're going to do that alone. And so we have, I'm trying to click on the thing. We have a small video that we want to show you now.
And folks, please let me know if the sound is working okay. If it is not working, speak up right away so we can fix it. But this is a short video just as an introduction to Charting the LifeCourse.
The Charting the LifeCourse framework really is an opportunity to elevate the voice of all family members, all team members, really anyone who is in that circle supporting a person with disability or any person. I've used the framework personally in my own life. It's a great way to problem solve, make decisions, think a little bit differently, and I think that's the beauty of the framework. It is a different way of thinking. So many of the concepts are not necessarily new. They're profound in how simple they are, actually. They're things that you might think you already know, but when you put them all together, I think it really creates an opportunity to, like I said, think differently about the way that we've always done things, that elevates the voice of all of the team members and creates a lasting change.
Yes, and I love the quote that was behind her there that said something about, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, then you're not going to see the genius of that person. And so that's a paraphrase. I didn't get it exactly right, but I really like that quote that was behind her. Okay. So it was created to support more than 4.7 million people with developmental disabilities in vision planning. But it can really be used for all people, for any person, for many reasons: family members, grandparents, siblings, clients, students, and even for yourself. You have a vision for yourself too, and in small bits. So, yeah. And why is it important? Well, this is something that I like to really focus on myself. Vision planning is the first step in the journey of transition. The student, parent, and team vision is an important part of the IEP. And the goals and objectives should be the steps that will eventually lead to the vision. But remember, you write one every year, and students are mandated to participate in their IEP starting at age 14. But the sooner the better. And I just want to say, some students either cannot participate or don't want to, or it's really hard. And that's okay, but to still get their voice in there in some way. I also want to say I put in red, first step in the journey. My transition isn't over yet. I'm still transitioning through my life. And your students are going to continue to do that their whole life. And I know, as was pointed out, you probably don't believe me about that yet, but it is true. We're just going to keep going step by step. And if you get it wrong the first time, you just keep moving through the transition. So there you go. Next.
All right. Thanks so much, Kathy. I'm going to start to walk us through a preview of some of the tools from Charting the LifeCourse. Essentially, it has a fantastic library of resources and tools for families and individuals to use to start that vision planning process. Folks at Cotting and families at Cotting have some tools that they really like to use, tools that are their favorites. So I'm going to highlight those, but I want you to know there's a lot more on this website for you to explore. So the first tool right here is called the Life Trajectory tool. This tool highlights the past life experiences that are leading or moving you away from your vision. And it provides space for current goals, things that to avoid moving forward. It helps you to identify a vision for what you want. And part of what I really love about this tool is that it has you think about things that you like, the things you love, the things you want, but also it has you think about the things you don't want. It's really important to know what those are, sort of, so that you can make a plan around avoiding them and preventing negative life experiences. We're going to watch a short video about using this tool, and then I'll show you the tool on the screen.
As much of the theme of LifeCourse is about not only understanding your vision, but truly being clear about what you don't want. And it's really important that we understand what Ben doesn't like. And so we actually made these pictures black and white, and we talked about, what bothers Ben. And so tell me what's happening in some of these pictures. What's happening up here?
Got my wallet.
He does not like to forget his wallet. It's really important to him. Now, who is that?
Izzy on my bed.
Izzy's his dog, and do you love Izzy?
Yes.
Do you like Izzy on your bed?
No.
That's a no-no, which people wouldn't necessarily like or know about, right? So what's happening here?
I get sick.
Don't like being sick. What is that down there?
School bus.
Okay, and this school bus was put there because you talked about not liking being treated different than your brother and his friends, right?
Right.
So this school bus is actually a bus that you would have had to take it by yourself and your brother wouldn't have been able to.
Right.
And you didn't like that, right?
No.
And so that helped us really start kind of thinking about how to start establishing Ben's goals when we understood his vision and the stuff that he wanted and he didn't want.
So I think this tool is one of the simplest and maybe a great way to start thinking about vision planning, because you can be really broad with the things that you're thinking about, or you can be really specific. There's a lot of flexibility. I'm going to show you a couple of examples, of folks who have filled out this life trajectory tool. On the right in blue, here is my trajectory tool. This is something I shared with families at back to school night as an example. Vision for what I want. I want to be a teacher. I want to live in the city. I want to have pets because I love animals. I want to be able to see my friends often. I want to do yoga every week. I want to hike. I really want to sleep in on the weekends. And I want to try different foods and be able to go out to eat. And some examples of things that I don't want to wake up early every single day. I don't want to be stressed out. I don't want to go grocery shopping every week. I don't want to go to the laundromat, so I probably want to find a place to live that has its own laundry. I don't want to live far away from my family, and I don't want to sit still all day for my job. Now, the LifeCourse website has a ton of really great examples of folks who have filled out these tools. It's a great place to look for videos. They have really in-depth videos that will walk you through the steps of filling these out. All right, our next tool is a relationship mapping tool. And this tool is to help identify the different people and the ways that they support you. Some of the people in your life might fulfill a lot of different roles, like mom and dad might fulfill a lot of different roles, brothers and sisters, and others might have only one significant role. This tool can help you have conversations about the future and think about who might fill those roles when others are no longer available. So let's watch a short video here.
So Ben, do you remember the day at the fire station?
No.
No? Okay, let's remember. We all sat in a big room in a big square. And your dad was there.
Matt was there.
Your brother, your twin brother was there. I think your older brother was there.
Zach was there.
Yes, he was there. And a whole bunch of other people. Who were all those other guys? Did they work at the fire station too?
Yeah.
So they were firefighters. Some of them were brand new. They'd been there a couple weeks. Some of them had been there for a long time, right?
Right.
And we sat and we talked about who? We talked about you.
Me.
Yep. And what was awesome about this day was each of the guys went around the room and everyone told why Ben was important to the fire station. And it literally sent chills down my spine. And I'm sure it did for mom and dad and family. And the reason why it was so amazing, I remember this, other people had been friends with them. They thought he was cool to hang out with. They liked to play basketball with him. But the one firefighter that got me to the core was a brand new firefighter, young guy. And he said, I will tell you what, we see some horrific things every single day. And he said, we go out and see, just horrible accidents and fires. And he said, but when we come back to this fire station, Ben is here with a smile on his face, and it kind of takes it all away. And it was then that it was like, wow, this reciprocal role concept is real.
It was overwhelming for me. I mean, I had never heard anybody talk about Ben in that kind of a value base. And I know I couldn't even look at Tom because I knew he had tears in his eyes. And I know if I looked at him, I'd be crying. And I think Zach, his older brother, left the room several times because I think he just got really emotional. And it was just cool though, seeing these big, burly firefighters.
So I think one of the things that is really unique about this tool, besides the fact that this tool is going to help you sort of identify those folks in your network, in your community that are going to be there to support you, it provides the opportunity for you to understand and explore how your child or your student or your loved one is supporting other people. So this tool is sort of split up into, the first part talks about who are the people that are caring about my child, and who are the people that are caring, and who are the people that my child is caring for, and vice versa. So you can start to see the reciprocal roles that take place. here are a few examples of folks who have used this relationship mapping tool. You'll see on the right is really just like someone has taken and used this tool as it is to think about who are the people that share love and trust and affection. Well, in this case, it was mom, dad, sister, brother. Who are the people that spend time and create memories together? That's friends and family. Who are the people that know about personal interests and traditions? Well, those are mom and dad and nanny and grampy. Who supports this person day to day? Their teachers, their therapists, their PCAs, their out-of-district coordinator, their job coach. There's a lot of people that support our students daily. The second column of this sheet talks about looking ahead. Maybe there are some people who support our children and students now, but maybe that's going to change as they get older. So starting to think about how that might change. And then the last column is next steps to help you start thinking about, okay, what are the steps that I can take to help support that change in the next year, in the next 5 years as it starts to happen. On the left of the screen over here is a little bit of a different version, but it is using the same concept, thinking about all of those people in a student's life that might be a part of their network to support them. So thinking about places, work, and learning, I'm looking at the middle circle. This student goes to Cotting School, and these are all the people who help them, their teacher, their SLP, their OT, their PT, their job coach. Thinking about this person's brother who goes to high school, who are the people in that network that might help them, or the sister who goes to middle school, who are the people in that network. This student works at Sancta Maria with a supervisor named Charles, so maybe that's a person who might be playing a role in their future. All right, our next tool is called the Support Star. And this tool helps you to identify the supports that you're using now and to think about other supports that might be helpful in the future. So some of the areas that they outline on this tool are centered around relationships, which we just talked a little bit about, technology supports, personal strengths and assets, and things like eligibility and community resources. Those are some resources that we're thinking about too.
The integrated support star can be used for planning, problem solving, or exploring. And so on this one, I'm going to kind of talk to you about the planning way to use it. And when we start working with people, a lot of times what I like to do is I always say I like to start mapping, and I'll sit down with a person and either I put their name here or I put the key issue that I'm working on. So if I'm working on, I want to get a job, or maybe I just met this person and I want to just put their name in here. And so I just really want to start kind of mapping out what they currently tap into. So let's talk about getting a job. So if I've got job in the middle of this, what we sometimes do is we split the star, and by splitting the star, what we start doing is help me understand what you have now. And we kind of say, who's in your life that can help you think about your job? What types of services are you already currently using? Where do you currently go in the community that you like to go and maybe volunteer, or just places you like to hang out? How are you currently using technology? Sort of what strengths and assets and different things do you like about employment? And then after we go around and we do that, what we start to do is we say, but then what else do we need to work on? What else becomes the thing that we need to identify that's going to help you have a job? And we go around and we really start saying, I might need to call my uncle who owns the clock shop that I want to work at. I might need to call some employers and talk to them about this. I might need to get some technology to help me. And so when we start doing that is it starts helping us begin planning and identifying activities and setting goals.
All right, so this is a tool that I actually love to use in my classroom with my students. I like to have my students sort of put their name at the center of that star, like she was describing in the video, and think about all of those things about themselves. Think about what are their personal strengths, what are their skills or abilities that they have, who are their important relationships, the people who help them. What technology do they use every day? And what community resources do they access? What are the places that they like to go? So here's an example that one of my students made. I think it's a really great activity to get their perspective of all of these things. This tool is really interesting because you can use it generally, but you can also use it really specifically, and you can use it for problem solving. So for example, say you're having a really, really hard time getting some transportation sorted out for your child or your student. You can put transportation at the center of this star and maybe have a meeting with some folks, you know, meet with your student's teacher or a PCA or some people that you really trust to help problem solve this. What type of transportation is your child good at? What are the things they know already about it? Who are some people who could help with transportation? What type of transportation is your child eligible for? Community-based, what type of transportation is even available in your community? Is there the bus? Is there the train? Is your student eligible for the ride? And then also, what type of technology might be able to help your student with transportation? Would they be able to use the Lyft or Uber app? Could they use a trip planning app? Things like that. All right, our next tool it's a really big one, and it seems really big. It's a vision planning tool. And there is a lot on this, but do not panic because this tool is big, but it's big so that it's meant to be really flexible so that you can use it in different ways. This tool is about forming a vision and beginning to plan for the future in each of the life domains. So if you go on the Charting the LifeCourse website, you are going to see they have highlighted many different life domains. Things like social domain and the community living domain and healthy living domain and advocacy. So this tool is to help individuals of all ages to start to think about a more specific vision for life in the future and to narrow down what life domains to focus on at any point in time. Let's take a peek at the video and then I'll tell you a little bit more about this one.
So Charting the LifeCourse really helped me to take the time to be able to listen to what, especially Connor, what his vision was. I think that's where probably the biggest connection happened. I really hadn't asked him. You know, you a lot of times when you have a kid with a disability, you forget to ask kind of what they want to be and what their dreams are, because you're so focused on helping them get through the day and making up those deficits. And one thing that Charting the LifeCourse really did for me was it made me stop and have a conversation. He did not like that I'd pulled out a piece of paper, so I put it away and we just had a conversation about what his dreams look like. What did the best day ever look like when he was all grown up? And he told me a lot of things that I don't think that I would have ever have known. And I've been able to use those things as he's gone on and remind him that those are things that he wants in the future.
There are multiple versions of this tool. There is a family version of this tool, which is meant for families or support networks to look at these categories and fill out what the vision would be. But there is also a person-centered version of this tool, which is meant to be used in conjunction with the family version to get that individual's input on what their vision is in all of these areas. So here are a few examples of this vision planning tool. And there's a lot written here. You do not need to read it all. No one's eyesight is this good. It's all available on the website. But what I wanted to show with these two examples is that you'll notice in the first example that not every box is filled out. And it's just bullet points. This is meant to help you with brainstorming. It doesn't have to be a novel. You can put some bullet points. And maybe at this point in your child's life, you're only thinking about daily life and employment and community living and social experiences. And then maybe the next year, you're thinking more about health and living and safety and security. And at different times, you may be filling out different parts of this form. All right. Like I said, the Charting the LifeCourse website is home to so many different tools. These are our 4 favorites sort of here at Cotting to use and share with students and families. But they also have a library of resources. There are worksheets, there are videos, there are examples. And these are some of the domains that they cover: employment, daily life, respite, integrated supports, and school. So they have one other section that I really love, which is called Quick Guides in the Life Experience. And each one of these guides is maybe a 20-page booklet that highlights things you might be thinking about during certain years, and it gives you ideas of how to prepare for changes. So focusing on early childhood, what are the domains you should be thinking about, and what are the questions you should be starting to prepare for? We have a focus on the school age, which is you're thinking lower school, middle school, maybe upper school. And then the focus on transition to adulthood, which is more of like our Capstone students, our students who are 18 to 22 or even older. All right, I'm gonna pass this conversation along to Dr. Pam Varrin.
Thank you, Lola. That was wonderful. It brought me back to the group that Kathy and Lola and our colleague and communication therapist, Stephanie Soul, ran last year with Cotting parents. As part of a transition initiative, we brought together a group of parents whose children were a little younger than the age when families begin to get really, really, really anxious about transition. They were in the 14, 15, 16-year-old range, and we wanted to pilot a working group to work with these tools, to explore and work with these tools together. We met over about 8 weeks, and a number of parents participated in this workshop. We are very fortunate to have 2 of them join us today to share with you their experiences working with these tools, going through the process of exploring and kind of trying them out in the group, and then taking them home for their reference, or to use some of the concepts without using the tools in their family discussions and discussions with their students, but also to try out using some of these tools. So we thought it would be really helpful to all of you to hear their reflections on that experience. And I want to welcome Nancy and Jenn.
Hello.
Nancy, hey, we're so glad you're here. I'm going to ask both of you to give a brief introduction of yourselves, your child's age, strengths, and the areas of growth they're working on hardest now. So I'll ask you, Jenn, to start, and then Nancy, you can jump in.
Sure. My name's Jennifer. I am the mom of Kyle Byrne. He is in Miss V's class. He's in upper school, 15 years old. Movies are his jam. Like that's where we tend to focus a lot of our energy. He's a super caring and kind kiddo. Yeah, he's got a great sense of humor. And we are kind of at the point now where we're working on independence and growing as many skills as we can, and really trying to expose him to a lot so he can figure out what it is that he likes. And, is there something out there that he hasn't been exposed to that he really has an interest in?
Thanks, Jen. How about you, Nancy?
Yeah, I'm Nancy. I am the mom of Ari Marcucci. Ari's her second year at Cotting with Ari. She's 16. She's also in Miss V's class, so she gets to hang out with Kyle. Ari had a bacterial brain infection when she was 7, and she started having seizures at 12, and that impacted her memory and her cognitive capability. So all of this transition is newer to us. And that was interesting and eye-opening to me through part of the parent transition group. And I've actually had more reflections of this post-transition group. And we're still dealing with it, but she's making progress. Ari is resilient, like so many of the kids that I meet at Cotting. She has an amazing sense of humor. You'll hear her healthy sarcasm and laughing. It keeps her going. She's curious and she wants to learn. And she's very good at forming relationships, and she is empathetic and really wants to have good friends, and she's been able to realize that. We're very, very methodical about that in the last 6 months working with Ms. Borking, which has made a huge difference in her at school. And while she's very accepting of her circumstances, which I find is a strength, one of her areas of growth this year is rebuilding her independence. That epilepsy does not define her, that we don't let seizures win, quote unquote. And that comes with identifying and expressing her emotions. That's been a big goal for her this year. She doesn't have to be tough all the time. And when we are, how do these impact her getting to school? Because we know when she's in school, we're working on all these other goals, right? But these are the ones that we're primarily working on, and getting her to school consistently and thinking about her future.
Thanks, Nancy.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to remind everyone, if you have questions, please put them in the chat. We'll try to cover them before this workshop is over, but if not, we can respond with answers later on. So Nancy and Jen, I'm going to put the same questions to both of you, so you can kind of, bounce off each other in terms of how you might answer these. And the first question is, as you think about working with these tools in our group last year, could you share what stood out in your experience? What felt important to each of you?
Sure, I'll start. I think that when I look back on where I was when I started thinking about the transition program and where I was, at the end of the last session, I felt way more empowered. I felt like I was a different person. I was not alone. I think, Pam, you could probably see it in my face when I first started. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed by the thought of transition, and all the different tools for me really made it seem more manageable, less overwhelming. I was able to, I learned so much from the presentations, from the brainstorming, from the collaboration, and after each session, I walked away saying, okay, I can do this. I can do this piece of it. And by the end of it, I felt like I had a much better understanding of the what's supposed to happen during this time. I loved the support star. That to me was the visual that I needed to say, okay, I can break this down into pieces, and this year I'm going to tackle this, and this is really what he wants, and here's how I have to go about getting it. So that was a huge help. I thought that you guys had presented everything in such a thought-provoking way. There was no wrong answer, and it was, from everybody, just everybody's different experiences. There was so much that was brought to the table that I hadn't thought of, but had time to reflect on, and that was big for me as well. I think each, after each one, I just felt like my concerns were kind of sorted out a little bit, I guess. And I had a path going forward, and I could turn around to my husband and say, okay, this is what I learned, and here's something different that we can do, and here's something different that we can try.
Yeah, I agree with that, Jen. I think I hadn't even thought about transition. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I need to think about transition. So it's like an eye-opening, but it helped me think more broadly about planning for the future, but then how to break it down. It also, it was empowering for me, for us to shed a light on the things that we're already doing that we didn't even say, oh, that's part of her transition. Yes, that's right. So that helped me identify that as we were having conversations and listening to other examples. While we set the vision now, and I think all of you who helped us and through the parents told us this, is that you can do this incrementally. This is not like, I don't have to have the perfect vision for the future today, and start building kind of those skills and using it like for her IEP, or even shorter. Like I started, Ari loves whiteboards, and we said, what's our goals for the spring? And she wrote all the things down on the whiteboard, and it lasted for a while. And then she's like, I'm sick of that, Mom. But we were introducing the concept, so which is fine. But no one ever talks to you when you go through an event like this with your kid about what the future holds. The medical team, the rehab team, they're always like, oh, Ari's got to go back to school and she'll be fine. And for us, that's not the case. And thank you that we landed up at the Cotting. But when it allows us to have that path forward. And I think just reinforcing with Jen, you can just pull a tool out and use it differently. If you ever the problem solving star is terrific because it really helps you in a moment. So they're just not for the longer term. Like use it for a short term thing, and they're great tools.
Thanks, Nancy. Two of the things that you said were that really stood out to me was the idea that you could look at these at transition with other folks who are always also looking at transition, and that you weren't alone with it. And I wonder if either one of you have any further thoughts about what it was like to be with kind of your fellow travelers. That's the way I think about it, and what you feel like you learned from them.
Yeah, I can. I took a lot of notes. And so Lola, when you were writing things and filling out the stars, and we were all brainstorming, I wrote down anything that anybody else said that applied to Kyle. And there were so many things that I was like, oh yes, that could apply to him. Oh, that's a great idea. I could see Kyle doing that. Nancy, same as what you had said, where I wrote down a couple of things where I was like, oh, we are doing that. Okay. Like I feel a little more on track than I was. I think the collaboration was just so great working with everybody. Everybody comes from a different point of view. And that in and of itself is very important and empowering, I think. Just, you're not alone. And to know that there are other people that are sharing the same concerns and sharing the same fears about transition and what the future for their child looks like is very empowering, I think.
Yeah, I'm not going to repeat it. Same. And the other part is, it's okay not to have all the answers. I think a lot of the group at the beginning was like, oh my God, overwhelmed and like, I have to have this all figured out. And, it's like, it's okay. Like, this is the process where you don't need to know what you don't know, because that's why you're going through it. And actually doing it as a group allowed us to have that input and allowed us to express our fear and express our anxiety and offer support, even, to the folks. And it makes a difference, because a lot of times we're by ourselves, right, with our kids trying to solve things. So it was nice to hear what's going on with other parents. So that was super helpful.
Thanks. You both have touched on this a little bit. But the next question is, did your participation in the working group affect your feelings about transition, and in what ways? And since you have touched on it a little bit, do you have any other thoughts to share?
I think I'm not as scared of it as I was before, because I can see how to break it down into pieces. And, looking at Kyle's age and identifying like what he needs to work on now and what are some goals to have by the end of the school year. That was really helpful, being able to break it down in pieces, because when I came into the program, I had no idea where to start. I didn't know where Kyle should be, what he should be doing, everything seemed important. And I couldn't pick out those pieces that I needed to start with now. And you guys helped break that down, and talking with everybody else helped identify, certain things stood out as more important right now versus important a year or two from now. So it certainly affected how I felt about transition. And I'm able to now, I still get overwhelmed by it, but I'm able to kind of quell those fears and look at it a little bit differently. I think I'm just able to stay better focused on where he is now and needs to be. And, I don't get as freaked out by it.
And I think it's important to, when you go through this, there got to be certain tools or processes that speak to you the most, and you use those tools. So if they speak to you and they're helping you, use it. And then thinking like Ari's IEP just got scheduled for December. I'm like, oh, we need to go back in and check in. And so it's a good way for us to, like last year, I didn't even have that in my brain, right? So that's affected me, right? Like, oh, now I know that I have a process that I can use, and use whatever piece of it that's the best use for me and Ari at this time.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that segues into our next question, but it also illustrates what Lola was saying before, that these tools can be pulled out at different times for different things. And I just want to amplify what you said, Nancy, about focus on the tools that speak to you. There's no rule about what you have to do first. There will be things that speak to you and speak to your experience with your child in ways that you'll feel. So next, I want to ask, what have been your most important takeaways from this working group? And you just answered this in some way, Nancy. Do they continue to play a role in your process of preparing for transition?
Yeah, as I was thinking about this, I like that there's 4 things that are like my biggest takeaways that's important for me. Like having a vision for yourself and your child are equally important. And I never thought about that, because you're so focused on taking care of your child, you're not thinking about you. So, and what does it mean in relation to your kid, right? So they're not separate. They're separate, but connected, right?
Yes.
And it's also okay that you can be super focused on the short term, and that's okay. Kathy, I saw you at the back to school night. She's like, how's it going? I'm like, we're trying to get to school. It's like, that's our goal. That's okay. Even though it's connected. Involve your child as much as possible to the way that works for them. I love that example. I wrote it down where she asked her son, I put away the paper and I said, what's the best day ever look like when you grow up? Like, something you got to work with your kid, but that's a great way to have that conversation. I also took away that I have to be more deliberate with our resources and relationships in our community and our family that are important, that support you and your child, that you may not have recognized. One of my big moments where Ari loves to get her hair done and her nails done. And that's what got us through, honestly, a few years when she was doing nothing else. And they were her destination points, and they welcome her and they know her. And then I went in by myself on Saturday and they're like, where's your daughter? Where's your daughter? Where's your daughter? Where's your daughter? But okay, mom, I'm going to take care of you. But it was and I told them, and she got her nails for the prom, and we showed the picture. Like, Ari gets positive reinforcement and feels valuable and like recognized. So to do that. And then while just thinking about the transition, we said can feel overwhelming and scary, I realized effectively that I've been doing this all along, right? I have, and I never give myself credit for it. I think that doing everything with Ari's situation over the past several years, It was focused on more shorter term. How do I get through surgery? How do I get through rehab? How do I find her school? But that was transition planning because we had a goal. So we probably are doing this all along and we don't necessarily give the credit. So those are my 4 big takeaways and what's important to me.
Those are terrific, Nancy. Thanks. What would you add, Jenn?
So I think for me, there are 2 things that really stick out in my mind. One, Lola, I think you asked it in one of the sessions where you said, what would your child's perspective be? And that was really eye-opening for me because I was like, well, I don't know what his perspective would be. And that I never wanted to answer, I don't know, to that question again. And I realized at that point that I was doing a lot of it, like Nancy said, kind of by myself. And because that's what we do as moms. It's what am I going to do for my child? What am I going to do for my child? And that's all I knew. And something switched in my brain where I just said, you know what? This is his life. This is his transition. This is what he wants to do. I am only the assistant here. And so we have had a lot more conversations about what he wants and how he is envisioning what his life is going to look like. And so it's really driven a lot more by him than it is by me. And I'm just helping him find his way. The other thing that really stuck out to me was the night we broke down community and technology. And those were 2 things for me where I look at Framingham differently now. I look around and I say, what is available to Kyle here? And I just see things a little bit differently. Can Kyle participate in this? How would Kyle participate in this? What does he need to participate in this? And that was an eye-opener for me. And technology as well. I had never really thought about the ways technology could help him live a more independent life because we do everything together. We're always together. But that was for me a big, okay, he can do some of this by himself. If we, give him the technology that he needs to do it. So I walked away from that session thinking we're going to make some changes around here. And and for me too, I think, I learned a lot about myself. Kyle is growing, but I'm growing with him and our relationship is changing as well. I am less of the, this is what we're going to do and more of what would you like to do? How would you like to do this? So yeah, it was a big growth for me as well.
Hey, Jenn, and Lola, we added in those sessions on self-determination, right? We talked more, and that also is really important. It's kind of it connects to what we're talking about, Jenn, around independence and involving them more.
Yeah.
We have to build that self-determination in and recognize that in our kids. And that was also really helpful.
Yeah. And we'll be doing a session on self-determination later on in the year. That's open to all as well. Thank you both so much for being here today and sharing your reflections and impressions. They were incredibly rich and helpful for us to hear and really kind of represent how we experience that group process too. And they also connect to one of my most important takeaways from the group, which is how wonderful parents are as teachers and supporters to each other. We learned a lot from all of you, from your experiences, from your questions, and we really saw in the group how much, for us too, we saw what you both referred to, which was the learning and connection with fellow parents, with fellow travelers. So that was as family support coordinator here, that's always what I hope for and try to support. And it was really wonderful to experience it. Are there any things that I didn't ask about that you didn't cover that you would like to share before we shift a bit? Okay, thanks. Then if there are any questions, we have about 7 more minutes so we can entertain some questions in the chat. And we have one already that relates to what I was just talking about. The question is, how many parents were in the pilot group? Since it's an empowering program and parents learn from other parents, how does Cotting plan to roll this out and offer it to future groups of parents? Fortunately, we have an answer to that. We are both rolling out the same groups. We had 2 groups, a vision planning group for using the Charting the LifeCourse as we did today for students who are 14, 15, 16 years old. And we'll be rolling that out soon. We're starting these groups. We're doing them quarterly so that we can make sure to sustain this over time. And that group, the vision planning group, invitations will arrive in the appropriate parents' inbox soon. This year, we're also adding 2 other aspects from our learning with those 2 groups. We're also continuing the senior parent and post-grad group, but we're adding these community learning opportunities, these family learning opportunities, so that anybody in the Cotting community can be a part of those topics. We're also adding a group for 16, 17, 18, and 19-year-olds to talk about, for some folks who still have questions about guardianship, there'll be coverage of that, alternatives to guardianship, the 688 referral, adult services. Kathy, help me out here.
Social Security.
Social Security, yes. And that, yeah. So it was very important to us in doing these pilot groups to make it sustainable so that over time, everybody will have an experience in one of these groups. But we're getting started, and hopefully we'll see more of you in either one of these more focused age-related groups or in the other presentations we'll be doing over the year. Yes, we're reaching out to certain parents to invite them to the vision planning as opposed to signing up. That's right. And this is something that we're kind of learning about as we go along. Our vision was that we would help to support cohorts of parents whose children would be in the same so the same expected graduating class. So that was our vision, and that's how we organized the groups originally. That's still how we're organizing the groups this year, but we're also still learning. So your feedback about that is absolutely welcome. Are there any other questions?
And that made most of the groups smaller. And that group, there was a question about how many. There was a small group of people in that original pilot where we talked about, and that kind of allowed for that back and forth so much with parents.
Yeah. I think there were like 11 to 15 possibilities for people to be in those groups.
Yeah.
I think the folks who came more regularly were more like 6, 7, 8, depending on the group meeting.
Yeah. Great.
You're welcome.
Do you want me to write in the chat, or can I just ask?
Go right ahead.
So while I'm the sort of new family to Cotting, and as Lola was speaking, I was doing some Google searching, and I saw that DDS is partnering to use the tools from the LifeCourse framework. Is there, and they're doing that, they're saying, in the ways that they can support individuals and families in the future. Is there a tie-in with DDS, or is?
I think DDS I think we're all trying to help families understand how to use these tools and give them support in using these tools separately, but at the same time.
Right. So having this in place,
Yeah,
can only
that's
benefit
correct.
us. Yeah.
We felt that it would be helpful for kind of our general fellow travelers in the cotting community to have a cotting place, to be able to access, use, and have resources, other parents, the three of us, and others in the cotting community who can provide support. But I regularly post any workshops that are happening on Charting the LifeCourse in my weekly update, because folks may also want to continue their exploration in these ways as well. And that's great.
Thank you.
And Catherine, I just want to add that Charting the LifeCourse framework has been around for quite a while. It's a project that was created by professors in a really and researchers in a really fantastic program at the University of Missouri. And there's a lot of really awesome and relevant research about students with disabilities, young adults with disabilities, and transition coming out of the University of Missouri. So this is a tool that many organizations and folks in the disability community use. I had not heard of DDS using that, and it's really wonderful. I think that the more places see the value in the tools and the more people are able to access them, the better off we all are, really. Thank you for sharing that.
and as I know we're winding down, but I see there's one more
Yes.
comment in the chat that says, I think it's also helpful to point out that everyone goes through these steps at a different pace and starting from different points. So I think as you bring the groups of people together, incorporating these factors helps everyone learn from each other more effectively. And it also brings to my mind how the folks in our groups, their students are very different. We have quite an eclectic population for whom different things are more important, you know, depending on what the needs of your child are. But what is the same is the terror and fear of the future, and being able to use these tools together and understand that you can support each other just by not being alone. A couple people said that, I think, in your statements, and not being alone is really very important. You're not alone because you have each other as parents and our Cotting community, but you're not alone because you have the professionals here at Cotting who want to support and help you. You're not alone because there are adult services that will help you, and your wider community. Who else is in the world? That's part of what this shows you. There's who else is in the world that might be able to help you. So feeling alone, I think, is a common thread that I hear from families all the time. So I just wanted to say that.
Yes. We all want to thank you for being here today, taking time to do this, and to be active participants in our discussion today. We will be making this recording available as long as it works. And I'm sure it will, but certainly we'll make the slides available to all of you and post them so others can access them as well. So thank you again for being here, and we will look forward to seeing you in some way soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.